Heartwarming act. Black woman shelters freezing Hell's Angel family for one night. Dozens of bikers pour in to help. In the quaint Midwestern town of Maplewood, winter had painted the streets with a serene layer of snow. It was a stillness that belied the chaos soon to unfold. Mariah, a spirited single mother, took a moment to breathe deeply as she managed the demands of her job at the local diner and cared for her two bright-eyed children. She often conjured images of her late grandmother, a woman wrapped in kindness and community spirit, whose tales of generosity still echoed in Mariah's heart. "Remember, darling," her grandmother used to say, "compassion can light the way, even in the darkest of storms." That winter evening, as icy winds howled outside, an unexpected tempest roared into town. 5 rough-looking Hell's Angels streaked through the snow, desperate for shelter from the relentless snowstorm. Their leather jackets, adorned with tattoos that told tales of their own, loomed larger than life against her cozy home. Mariah's instinct was to panic. Fear tight-knit her chest, fighting against the warmth of her grandmother's teachings. But then she remembered the stories, the call to stand up for others in need. Taking a deep breath, she swung open her door, inviting the unexpected guests inside. The kitchen quickly filled with a blend of uncertainty and warmth. Mariah prepared a meal with what little she had left in her pantry: canned soup, stale bread, and whatever scraps she could scrounge together. As the bikers took their seats around the table, their tough exteriors began to soften. They exchanged stories of hardship and family sacrifice, speaking of loss that resonated with her own struggles as a mother. Their laughter mixed with the aroma of simmering soup, forming an unusual harmony. Yet, outside her walls, the winds of judgment began to howl. Whispers of disapproval snaked their way through the neighborhood, reaching Mariah's ears. The very friends she thought would understand began to distance themselves, faces turning cold as rumors spread. It shook her, serving as a haunting reminder that Maplewood, though quaint and loving, harbored prejudices she never noticed. Just as her heart sank, a thought ignited: could kindness really conquer the fear of the unknown? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As snow blanketed the neighborhood, a surprising wave of support washed over Mariah. Local veterans, loyal townsfolk, and strangers who understood loyalty stood with her. Together, they faced the impending judgment, while Mariah's heart beat with hope. Was her act of kindness truly a catalyst for change? But the air thickened with tension as Mariah braced for a confrontation with those who dared question her actions. What does it mean to be a good neighbor? How far does compassion extend? Her home, once a sanctuary, now felt like a battleground between societal expectations and personal integrity. Mariah was on the precipice, teetering between the warmth of kindness and the chilling gale of criticism. Would she weather the storm, or would the icy whispers of prejudice pull her under? The next day hung in the balance, echoing with the uncertainty of what would come next. The morning light broke through the window, illuminating the remnants of a stormy night. Mariah stirred in her bed, her head heavy with thoughts of what lay ahead. The sounds of the kids playing in the living room reassured her for a moment, but as she climbed out of bed, the weight of the world settled on her shoulders again. Today was the day her neighbors would come knocking, armed with opinions and judgments. As she dressed, she could almost hear the whispers echoing in her mind. What were you thinking? You let them inside? The words of their concerned faces twisted in her gut. Yet, the memory of the men who shared her table was fresh, a rough exterior but softened by stories of hope, loss, and resilience. They were more than their tattoos and leather. They were just like her, battling their demons and seeking solace. In the kitchen, the smell of last night's soup lingered in the air. The bikers had thanked her profusely before settling down in the spare room, still a bit guarded yet grateful. They promised to leave early, but the sight of them reminded her that kindness could build bridges in unexpected ways. Still, she wondered if the town would ever see beyond their scars. As the sun climbed higher, a knock broke through her thoughts. It was Mrs. Peterson, the neighbor whose yard creaked under the weight of judgments and rumors. Mariah's heart raced. She wiped her hands on her apron and opened the door, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a greeting. Mariah, dear, can we talk? Mrs. Peterson's clipped tone made it clear this wasn't a social visit. Behind her stood a small group of neighbors, arms crossed and frowns firm. Of course, she replied, stepping aside. The group shuffled in, the heaviness of their presence thickening the air. They settled into the living room, the children momentarily quieted by the tension that enveloped the space. What were you thinking, inviting them here? Mrs. Peterson's words cut straight to the bone. You're putting this entire community at risk. Do you know what they've done? Who they are? Mariah's heart beat wildly. She wanted to defend her actions, to scream that love knows no boundaries, that her home was a sanctuary for anyone in need. Yet, the weight of their glares made her hesitate. Instead, she summoned her courage. They were cold and starving. Isn't that reason enough? The silence that followed was deafening. Mrs. Peterson opened her mouth to retort, but another voice chimed in. It was Frank, the soft-spoken mechanic from down the street, a man whose kindness often went unnoticed. Mariah's right. We can't judge a book by its cover. They need help just like we do sometimes. And they've shown nothing but respect in our town. Unexpected support. His words warmed the chill in the room for a brief moment. But it wasn't enough to thaw the icy stares from others. Mariah felt the urgency rise in her chest. Could this moment be a turning point? What if we invited them to share a meal again? She suggested, the idea tumbling forth without a filter. What if you got to know them, really know them? Mariah held her breath, waiting for a response. The room felt suspended in time, each pair of eyes searching for something in each other. The tension was palpable, the outcome uncertain. Would they stand against her, or could this act of kindness spark a change? As silence stretched, a faint sound echoed from the back of the house. One of the bikers was waking up. He stumbled out, looking bewildered in the morning light. The moment was fragile, but it held potential. Mariah's heart raced. This was only the beginning. What would this encounter reveal, and would the bikers help her fight against the tide of prejudice brewing in Maplewood? The biker stepped into the living room, rubbing sleep from his eyes, his 5 o'clock shadow adding to his rugged demeanor. Mariah recognized him as Jake, the one with a deep voice that resonated strength, captivating in its warmth. He shifted slightly, taking in the group of neighbors, their expressions a mix of odd surprise and barely concealed disapproval. Morning, he said, voice gravelly, almost shy. The tension in the room thickened, but his presence seemed to redirect it, like a magnetic force pulling the focus away from Mariah. Good morning, she managed to reply, her heart pounding with worry. Everyone, this is Jake. Mrs. Peterson's eyes narrowed, studying him as if he were a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. I hope you're aware of the trouble you've caused, she stated, as if Jake were the sole reason for the uproar. Jake set his jaw, but Mariah could see him attempting to swallow her neighbor's hostility as each word fell like stones amid a still lake. I just needed a place to rest, he said softly, looking down for a heartbeat before meeting their gaze. Mariah sensed a subtle shift. Frank stepped forward, his brows furrowed with determination. You're not the only one who is struggling, he said, gesturing to himself and the others. We're all trying to keep our heads above water. What sets us apart is how we react when life throws us those curveballs. The room turned silent again, tension crackling like static electricity. If only they could set aside their preconceived ideas, allow themselves to be vulnerable, perhaps they could see the shared humanity beneath the surface. Mariah leaned against the wall, hoping for breakthrough. Jake was in a tight spot. Just like the rest of us have been at one time or another. We don't know their stories, just like they don't know ours. Gradually, the neighbors shuffled uncomfortably, the old narratives they clung to being challenged, unraveling at the seams. Mrs. Peterson's expression softened slightly, the strict lines of her face catching the morning light, revealing her age and uncertainty. Look, she said, her tone shifting just a fraction, I appreciate your hospitality, Mariah, but it's just not safe. We've all heard the rumors. Rumors can be wild, Mrs. Peterson, Jake replied, his voice steady. I'm just here for a breath, same as you are. We may not fit your picture of a neighbor, but maybe that's what will change, together. A child's laugh from the back rooms broke through the seriousness, drawing smiles from a few. Mariah felt her insides twist, wishing desperately that laughter could cleanse the air of doubt surrounding them. Why don't we all just sit down? Together? Frank suggested, the vulnerability in his voice mirrored in his open expression. Have a real meal, hear real stories. They're not so different from ours, I promise. Mariah's heart lifted at his words. If only they could share a meal, find connection in the simplest act of humanity. But as she looked at her neighbors, she worried. Would they see what she saw in her heart? The silence that followed was a charged moment, hanging in the air like the calm before a storm. Mrs. Peterson exchanged glances with others, their faces perplexed, as the specter of change threatened the status quo. What do we have to lose? Jake asked, his voice quiet yet firm, the hint of a smile beginning at the corners of his mouth. It was a challenge, an invitation to alter a narrative that extended far beyond mere labels. As a few neighbors nodded hesitantly, uncertainty cloaked the room, but hope flickered like a candle's flame. Would they take that leap into the unknown? Would they join him and Mariah at the table where stories and humanity could merge? Just then, a siren wailed in the distance, piercing through the quiet moment. The reality of the world beyond the living room loomed large, both threatening and persistent. But was it too late to rewrite their stories? Mariah caught her breath, staring at her neighbors, waiting for someone to speak up, to make a choice. Would they accept the invitation or turn their backs once more? In that fragile moment, everything hung in the balance. The air was thick with tension, a fragile thread stretching taut as everyone in the room weighed their options. Mariah's heart raced, a mix of anticipation and fear coursing through her. She stole a glance at Jake, whose presence seemed to silently dare them all to confront their own apprehensions. Mrs. Peterson was the first to move, shifting her weight from one foot to the other as she considered the collective quiet. Slowly, she nodded, her previous resistance softening. Maybe we could give it a try, she said, her voice wavering. But let us keep things practical. We'll have some rules. A ripple of murmurs passed through the group, a mixture of surprise and tentative agreement. Frank jumped in, enthusiasm bubbling. How about we start with breakfast? I can whip up some eggs and toast. We can talk around the table, get to know each other. Mariah's heart swelled at Frank's willingness. I'll help, she said quickly, moving toward the kitchen. She felt a spark of hope igniting within her, a small flame worth nurturing. Jake stepped forward, his posture relaxing as he approached the others. I can help too, he said, glancing around at the few who still appeared hesitant. Just let me know what you need. The neighbors exchanged glances, and, one by one, they responded. Some moved toward the kitchen, gathering plates and utensils, while others offered to get ingredients from their own homes. A collective shift was happening, one born out of curiosity sparked by need. As Mariah cracked eggs into a pan and the rich aroma of breakfast began to fill the air, Jake stood next to her, offering assistance with a steady hand. It felt surreal, this unlikely camaraderie born from the tension that had only moments before left them all so distant. What do you do, Jake? Mariah asked, trying to bridge the gap between them with casual conversation. I ride, and I've picked up a few things along the way. His tone was relaxed, but something in his eyes danced with shadows. Usually, I help out those who need it, he continued, his words laden with unspoken burdens. Sounds like we have more in common than I thought, she replied, sensing his complexity. There was depth in his voice, a story unwritten yet longing to be shared. As the meal progressed, they all settled into the rhythm of chatter and laughter, breaking down the walls that had kept them apart. Neighbors shared snippets of their lives, while Frank animatedly recounted his first bicycle ride, causing everyone to erupt in warm laughter, swelling the connection in that small space. Mariah looked around the room, feeling a tide of gratitude wash over her. The barriers were crumbling, old narratives tossed aside like discarded scraps. Even Mrs. Peterson wore a tentative smile, her rigidness giving way to the emerging warmth between them, but just as the atmosphere seemed to reach a peak, the loud ping of Mariah's phone cut through the gathering. She glanced down, her heart sinking as she read the message. It was from her brother. Things are getting worse here. I need you to come back. The weight of that message pressed heavily on her chest. She saw Jake pause, catching her change in demeanor, concern shadowing his features. Could she stay in this moment of newfound connection while carrying her family's burdens? A part of her wanted to run, to forget the chaos that loomed beyond this sanctuary. But the other part, stronger and louder, yearned to hold on to what was blooming here. Just then, Frank's voice anchored her back. Mariah, a toast? To new beginnings? The neighbors raised their cups, echoing him with delighted cheers, eyes sparkling with the magic of the moment. As laughter echoed, Mariah found herself torn head swimming with the choice before her. Would she step into the storm waiting outside, or embrace this fragile moment of change? The siren's wail faded in the distance, but what awaited her could define everything. Would she leave her own story behind, or could she find a way to weave it into this new tapestry being created? The sun streamed through the window as she stood at the crossroads of her heart, uncertain yet hopeful, knowing that whatever her choice, it would shape the journey ahead. How could she possibly choose? Mariah felt the flutter of anxiety in her stomach as she looked at the faces around her. Laughter still danced through the air, but the weight of her brother's message clung to her like fog. She took a deep breath, trying to ground herself amidst swirling emotions. The clinking of glasses and the warmth of shared stories filled the room, but a shadow loomed just outside the door of her heart. Mariah? Jake's voice broke through her thoughts. He was closer than she realized, his eyes searching hers. You okay? Yeah, she replied, but her voice didn't carry the conviction she hoped for. There was a flicker of concern in his expression. He sensed that more lingered beneath the surface. She hesitated, the urgency of her brother's plea weighing heavily on her. As the laughter faded and Frank pulled everyone's focus back toward the meal, Mariah felt like an island in a sea of connection. She wanted to ease her brother's burden, wanted to be there for him, but didn't she deserve this moment too? The freedom and joy blossoming right in front of her felt like a gift, a chance to start over. Hey, Jake whispered, a conspiratorial whisper, leaning in closer. I can tell something's off. You can talk to me if you want. Looking away, she stared at the table, focused on the remnants of the breakfast half-eaten toast, the vibrant orange of the egg yolks glimmering like small suns. She took a moment, battling the rising tide in her chest, before venturing a reply. It's my brother, Mariah admitted reluctantly. Things aren't good back home. I think he really needs me. Jake tilted his head, his expression softening. That's tough. Family can be complicated sometimes. Exactly, she said, an unexpected sense of relief washing over her. It felt good to share even a little. But I don't want to just leave, you know? I've never felt this. She struggled for words. I mean, it's south like this place is turning into something real. His gaze held hers with warmth and understanding. And that probably scares you, doesn't it? More than I'd like to admit, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been running so long, afraid to really feel anything. Just then, Mrs. Peterson chimed in, her voice brisk but gentle, pulling them back to the moment. Well, dear, sometimes you need to let yourself be scared. It means you're alive and it means you care. Mariah smiled at her unexpected wisdom. Yes, she cared so deeply for her brother, but was just beginning to grasp the beauty of opening her heart to others. As the room filled with various voices, she found herself weighed down by the possibilities. Maybe she could find a balance. Maybe she could help her brother while still allowing this new bond to flourish, or at least, try. Cheers! Frank exclaimed, and everyone raised their glasses again, this time a little louder, a little brighter. They toasted to family, to new friendships, to whatever small moments made life worth living. In that moment, as Mariah lifted her glass, she felt a pulse of connection. It vibrated through her. It pushed back against the dark uncertainty lingering on the edges of her thoughts. For the first time in what felt like forever, she chose to dwell in hope, but her cheer was doused abruptly when her phone buzzed again, the screen illuminating with another urgent message from her brother. "You have to come now. They're not safe." The laughter around her dulled, a fragile joy slicing right down the middle. Was it too late for her to step back into the chaos of her past, or was there a way to carve out a future for herself that blended both worlds? As she looked around the room, at the eager faces surrounding her, a question formed in her heart. How could she protect those she loved while opening herself up to the beauty she'd just begun to discover? The moment hung in the air, the tightrope strung between two worlds balancing on the edge of what could be and what must be. Could she truly embrace them both? Mariah's hands trembled as she clutched her phone, the vibrant colors of the breakfast gathering bleeding into a muted haze. The words on the screen felt like a rock sinking into her stomach. "They're not safe." Her brother's plea echoed in her mind, drowning out the laughter, the clinking of glasses, the warmth that had filled the room only moments before. She excused herself from the table, her heart racing. The door to the patio beckoned, and she stepped outside, the chill of the air contrasting sharply with the warmth inside. She took a deep breath, the fresh scent of grass and blooming flowers. Yet, it felt bitter against the knot forming in her throat. Just a few weeks ago, she had found solace here, a sanctuary from her past, a place where she felt alive. The little moments of laughter, shared meals, and new friendships had begun to heal her old wounds. But now, her brother's predicament yanked her back into the reality she had tried so hard to escape. Mariah's childhood home was filled with shadows, a burden she'd worn like a second skin. She had left in search of herself. But now it felt like a jigsaw puzzle. Pieces of her family were scattered everywhere, and no matter how much she wanted to ignore it, they needed her. A gentle knock on the door startled her. It was Jake. She was caught off guard by his tender expression, a mixture of concern and support. "Hey," he said softly, stepping onto the patio. "I noticed you seemed overwhelmed. Want to talk about it?" Suddenly, she felt raw and exposed, standing in the sharp contrast between two worlds. She wanted to let him in, to share everything, but fear gripped her. "It's just my brother, he's in trouble. I don't know what to do," she blurted out, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. Jake stepped closer, his presence reassuring. "What kind of trouble?" She hesitated, anxiety tightening her chest. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me," he said, his voice unwavering. Mariah sighed, the weight of her world pressing down. He's been dealing with some dangerous stuff back home. I thought I could leave it behind, but it's still there. I feel like I have to go back." The tears she fought back threatened to spill, pushed by the tension between loyalty and self-preservation. "It's okay to feel torn," Jake said. "You're not alone in this. You can't control what's happening, but you can control how you respond." His words struck a chord. She had spent years running, but now was her chance to confront her fears. Could she return, face the chaos, and still hold on to the hope blooming here? Mariah took a shaky breath. "If I leave, I might lose this, you lose everything." Jake stepped closer still, the warmth radiating from him felt comforting. "You won't lose me. You have to do what you feel is right. Whatever choice you make, I'll support you." Could she juggle both her brother's needs and the blooming connection she'd forged? It felt like asking for the impossible, but there was a whisper of strength within her. Trusting her heart might be the only way out of this maze. As she stood in that moment of decision, filled with the possibility of choices, she realized that hope and heartache could coexist. Maybe she could protect her brother while still nurturing her own happiness, but the next step was daunting. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again, and she glanced at the screen. Another message. This one felt like a dagger. "I don't know how much time we have left." The hairs on her arms stood up. She was frozen between a choice that could change everything. Should she abandon the comfort of her new life to return to the chaos of her old one? An unsettling silence fell between them as she searched Jake's eyes for understanding. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, the reality of her life closing in. "Mariah," Jake said gently, "whatever you decide, remember, you have the strength to handle it." For a moment, hope flickered within her. But the truth was, she had no idea what her heart would ultimately choose to protect. As the patio door creaked behind them, Mariah had to wonder. Could one night make all the difference, and would she have the courage to face the waiting storm? Mariah stood at the edge of the patio, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum signaling an approaching storm. The sun cast long shadows across the yard, and she felt small against the vastness of her choices. The buzzing from her phone pressed into her palm, urging her to make a decision. Mariah? Jake's voice broke through her swirling thoughts. Please, just tell me what you're feeling. She wished she could sift through the chaos in her mind and lay it all out for him, but words felt like stones in her throat. The mail from home, the plea for help, it all crashed over her like a relentless wave. What if going back means losing everything I've built here? Sometimes, you have to risk what you love for those you can't leave behind, he replied softly, a hint of understanding in his eyes. As his words settled, it struck her anew. She no longer belonged to her past, but she couldn't ignore it. Her brother needed her. He's scared, Jake, and I can't just turn my back. The tears she had been holding back began to slide down her cheeks. Jake stepped closer and wiped away a tear with his thumb, grounding her. Have you thought about what might happen if you do go back? I could help him. I could maybe save him from. I don't know what. But the uncertainty gnawed at her. Could she really navigate the treacherous waters of her family's struggles without drowning in her own past? We can figure this out together, Jake said, his voice steady. But you have to go in knowing it won't be easy. You could face things that scare you, things that might threaten what you hold dear. The cold air pricked at her skin, but she could feel a warmth blossoming in her chest, fueled by desperation and hope. What if it goes wrong? She whispered, feeling the weight press down harder. Then you'll come back. You've got a community here. And I'm here. His eyes shone with sincerity. And I promise, you won't lose me. That flicker of hope ignited a small fire within her. Maybe returning home wouldn't mean she'd have to abandon everything. Maybe it was about weaving her past into her present. Okay, she finally said, swallowing her fear. I need to call him. I need to figure out what's happening. Jake nodded, a proud smile forming on his lips. Good. You've got this. Just trust your gut. As she reached for her phone again, the nervous energy danced in her veins. With each step closer to confronting her brother's crisis, she felt a shift. The uncertainty still loomed, but so did the possibility of connection, of understanding, perhaps even healing. Before she tapped the screen, a thought struck her. What if he doesn't want my help? What if he resents me for leaving? Jake clasped her shoulder, his grip reassuring. He won't, Mariah. He's your brother. Family ties are deeper than distance. Just be honest with him. That's all you can do. With one last deep breath, she prepared herself. Mariah pressed her thumb against the screen, heart racing as she pulled up his contact. The static cling of tension in the air made every second feel monumental. But just then, her phone buzzed again, another message sending a chill down her spine. I've made a choice and it may change everything. Her heart sank, a sense of dread creeping in. What choice? What had her brother decided? With her breath hitching in her throat, a flicker of terror spread through her. Whatever was happening, it couldn't wait. It was time to dive back into the chaos of her life, stepping into the unknown for the sake of love. Was she ready to face the reality of who she used to be in order to help him? As she called him, a new storm brewed on the horizon, one she wasn't sure she could weather. What could her brother possibly mean by his choice, and would it tear them apart even further? Mariah stared at the screen, her heart racing, as time felt suspended. Each moment weighed heavy like a stone in her chest. She wanted to scream no, she wanted to shout her brother's name across the distance that separated them. Instead, she felt like she was standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to jump without knowing how deep the water was below. Taking a deep breath, she hit the call button. The ringing seemed to pulse with her heartbeat, each tone echoing her growing anxiety. When his voice finally came through the line, it was shaky. "Mariah? Is that you?" "Yeah, it's me," she managed, clenching her free hand into a fist to steady herself. "I got your message." It sounded urgent. "It is," he said, the urgency in his tone sharper than she anticipated. I made a choice. I thought I could handle it on my own, but I can't. I don't know what to do anymore." Mariah felt a knot twist in her stomach. "What kind of choice? Are you okay? Tell me what is going on." Silence hung heavy between them, stretching into unbearable lengths. "I knew I should have reached out sooner." He swallowed hard. "I got involved with some people, Mari. Bad people. They're not who I thought they were." Her heart sank further. "What do you mean? Are you in danger?" "Maybe," he admitted, vulnerability bleeding through the crack in his voice. "I thought I could set things right without you, but now it's complicated. I owe them, and I think they might blame me for something I didn't even do." The realization hit her like a slap. Owe them? Money? Or not money? His voice dropped. "Something worse. They want me to do things I can't deal with. I don't want to be a part of that world, Mariah." Fighting back tears, she whispered, "What do you need me to do?" "I need you to come home. I know it's a lot to ask. But I don't know how to fix this alone. I just can't." Each word shattered her like glass. Freedom felt so far away suddenly. She could leave behind her safe life, her plans, all the things she nurtured, and dive back into the chaos of her old life. "I'm scared, Jason. What if I can't help you? What if I can't face everything I left behind? Just being here could make a difference." "I'm scared too. It's getting really bad. I don't even know who I can trust anymore." She rested her head against the cool glass of the patio door, feeling the chill seep through the thin fabric of her shirt. "What if they come for me? What if they think I'm involved?" His words rushed out. "They won't if you don't get involved. Just come home. We will figure this out together. Please." Tears streamed down her face as the weight of his plea crashed over her. "Okay. I'll come. I will." "Thank you," he breathed, relief mingling with his fear. "I'll be waiting for you." As they hung up, a sense of determination began to wash over her. Leaving everything behind wouldn't be easy, but for her brother, she would try. She owed him that much. But just as she began to rationalize the decision, doubt crept in again. What if she walked into a world where danger lurked in every corner? Jake's arms wrapped around her waist, grounding her. "Hey," he whispered. "You look pale." "What did he say?" "He needs me to go home. He's in trouble." "You're brave for doing this," he assured, but Mariah felt far from brave. "Is there anything I can do to help?" "Yes," she said, her voice resolute. "I need to leave tonight." She glanced toward the horizon, where twilight was settling in, and felt that familiar storm brewing deep within. She knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. As they stood in the fading light, Mariah looked deep into Jake's eyes. "I just hope I'm strong enough to face it all. Whatever it is, I'll be here for you. Just remember that." Yet, a creeping fear bubbled within her. Would her strength hold? Would she find a way through the tangled mess? And as she prepared herself for the journey, one question echoed loudly in her mind. What if home was more dangerous than the past she thought she had escaped? As Mariah packed her bag in the dim light of her room, she felt like she was moving through a haze. Each item she folded felt like an anchor, tying her to life as she knew it, one filled with stability, hope, and routine. But now, it all felt fragile, like a house of cards ready to collapse at the slightest breeze. She glanced around, taking in the vibrant colors of her comfort zone, the thick comforter on her bed, the cheerful pictures on her walls, and the framed smiles of friends. It all felt distant, almost surreal. Jake stood off to the side, leaning against the doorframe, his expression caught between admiration and concern. "Do you really think this is the right decision?" he asked, his voice a gentle probe. Mariah paused, fingers frozen over her green flannel shirt. It has to be, she said softly, pulling the shirt out to fold it neatly. He*s my brother. I can't just turn my back on him. But what if it's dangerous? What if it puts you in harm's way? His brow furrowed with worry, and she felt a tinge of guilt twist inside her. If I don't go, he might pay the price, she replied, her determination swirling with anxiety. He*s terrified. I can't leave him like this. She could see the tightness in his jaw, the way he clenched his fists at his sides. I get that, I do. But you have to promise me you'll be careful. I can't lose you too. I promise, she whispered, though the sincerity of it felt shaky even to her ears. Swallowing hard, she tried to drown out her own fears. As she zipped up her bag, the real weight of her decision settled on her shoulders. This wasn't just a journey back to her childhood home, it was a leap into the unknown, potentially into danger. Her heart raced again, not in fear but in anticipation. The thought of confronting her past made her skin tingle, both alarming and electric. After one last look around her room, she grabbed her bag and turned to Jake. I should get going. Jake stepped forward, taking her hands in his. Just remember, whatever happens, you're not alone. I'll be right here, waiting for you. A small wave of warmth filled her chest at his words, grounding her even as uncertainty loomed. With a heavy sigh, she stepped outside, the cold evening air wrapping around her. It felt sharp, like a reminder of everything she was leaving behind. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, the screen lighting up with another message from Jason. Please hurry. I need you. Her stomach knotted as she read those words. The drive didn't take long, but every second felt stretched, the darkness wrapping around her like an old, familiar cloak. The flickering streetlights were the only indicators of life as she drove through the quiet neighborhoods. Home felt like a distant planet, one she was reluctantly orbiting back to, both terrified and oddly nostalgic. Pulling into the driveway, she felt a rush of memories flood through her: a laughter-filled backyard barbecue, late-night talks in her now empty bedroom, the endless summer adventures. But there was darkness here too, secrets that had lingered, and now Jason's troubles loomed large, casting shadows over everything she once cherished. She stepped out of her car, bag slung over her shoulder, the chilling wind whipping around her as she approached the door. Her heart pounded in her chest. What if everything had changed? What if this wasn't the home she remembered? Taking a deep breath, she pressed the doorbell, feeling the ground shift beneath her as the sound echoed through the house. The door creaked open slowly, revealing the familiar, yet unsettling face of her brother. His eyes were wide with a mixture of relief and fear. Mariah, he whispered, stepping aside to let her in. As she crossed the threshold, she felt a shiver of apprehension run down her spine. There was no turning back now. Welcome home, Jason said, but the words hung heavy in the air. What had she stepped into? Would they face the storm together, or would old demons rip them apart? Uncertainty loomed between them, an unspoken dread waiting to surface. And as the door closed behind her, a chilling thought crossed her mind. Was their reunion the start of something profound or the beginning of their unraveling? Mariah stood in the modest living room, heart racing like a drum. The air felt thick with history and silence, making her wish to dissolve into the walls. Jason's home mirrored her childhood's similar furniture, the faint scent of old books laced with something darker. You came, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Of course, I did, she replied, forcing a smile, despite the icy grip tightening in her chest. What is going on? Tell me everything. Jason ran a hand through his disheveled hair, eyes darting around as if the truth lurked just beyond the shadows. I messed up, Mariah. I didn't want to drag you into this. His voice cracked, betraying an unseen weight he carried alone. Then let us get through it together. I can help. She stepped closer, reaching for his trembling hands. For a moment, they stood there, connected by the fear mapping their faces. He exhaled, a shaky breath, and shared his story how he'd gotten involved with a crew that preyed on vulnerability, promising quick cash while pulling him deeper into a world of deceit and threat. "I didn't think it would be like this," he murmured, regret dripping from every word. "I can't make sense of it. I need you, Mari." Feeling warmth flood her heart at his honesty, she nodded. "We'll figure this out. Together." The words felt strong, hanging in the air between them, a promise binding them anew, but just as resolve filled the space, a rap came at the door, firm and relentless. The sound sent a jolt through Mariah, memories of her turbulent past flashing before her eyes. "It's probably them," Jason muttered, glancing nervously at the door. "Don't answer," she urged, instinctively slipping her hand toward the old baseball bat leaning against the wall. "Let us talk through this first." He hesitated, frantic eyes flicking back to her. "They know I'm here. We can't hide, they'll just come back." A tremor in his voice filled Mariah with dread. Everything she had hoped would remain unshaken was gradually crumbling, her homecoming transformed into a battlefield. "No more running, Jason. We'll face this, but you need to trust me." Empowered by her determination, she approached the door with purpose. She had stepped into this storm for a reason, and she wouldn't shy away from the fight. "Let us show them we won't cower in fear." With that fierce surge of courage, Mariah yanked open the door. Two figures loomed outside, their postures intimidating, shadows playing against the porch light. But this time, she wasn't alone. Jason stood firmly beside her, a half step behind, yet resolute. "Can I help you?" she asked, keeping her voice steady, even as her heart thundered in her chest. One of the men sneered, the glint of malice in his eyes. "We're here for Jason. He owes us." "We're done here," she interjected, heat rising in her voice. "He's not paying you anything. Get lost." It was a risk, but in that moment, she realized she'd rather stand and fight than be a bystander to her brother's downfall. The tension crackled like frozen branches splintering against the weight of snow. Jason glanced sideways at her, surprise mingling with gratitude. They were united against the oncoming storm. "You're messing with things you don't understand," the second man said, stepping forward. "Get out of here, now," Mariah demanded, voice rising, gaze unwavering. To her surprise, laughter echoed through the chilly air. "You think you can intimidate us? You don't know what kind of family we are. You don't belong here." Seconds felt like hours, but gradually, the men exchanged glances, wary of the unexpected united front formed before them. In a moment of hesitation, uncertainty flickered across their faces. "This isn't over," the first man spat before they retreated, melting into the cold night. As they walked off, Mariah turned to Jason, tears of relief stinging her eyes. "Did you see that? We stood up to them. Together." Jason beamed, an expression of hope lighting up his drained features. "I never thought I could do that. Thank you for believing in me." But the victory felt fragile, the storm hadn't passed. For every smile and newfound strength, shadows still lurked. Mariah took his hands, grounding them both. "We need a plan. I'm not leaving until we sort this out. Together, we'll find a way." "I don't deserve your help," he confessed, eyes brimming with shame. "No," she insisted. "You deserve it. You're human either way." As they stood in the embers of their shared resolve, Mariah realized they had crossed the threshold between fear and hope. They had chosen a path, not dictated by the weight of their pasts, but illuminated by the strength they found within each other. Through moments of connection, vulnerability, and resilience, Mariah knew she could protect her brother, help him heal, and reclaim the home they both yearned for. She wasn't just embracing her past, she was transforming it, carving out a new future with every step. As dawn began to break and warm rays filtered through the windows, the world felt different. This was no longer the place of shadows, it was a sanctuary forged in love and courage. The storm would come, but together, they could face anything. "Let us start with breakfast," she said, flashing a warm smile, "and we'll plan our next move from there." "I'd like that," Jason replied, his heart beginning to mend. In that moment, they both learned that family bonds, no matter how frayed, forged a love that could weather any storm. Their journey together was just beginning, and for the first time in a long time, hope glimmered on the horizon. Together, they stepped into the future, a family thriving in the light of compassion, ready to confront whatever came next. You need to subscribe now to follow their incredible journey. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like now. Every bit helps us reach hearts like yours. Comment below your thoughts on Mariah's transformation and what it means to embrace family. And most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring story today. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans know how important your support is.